Well, progress for adolescent girls has not kept pace with the realities that they face today, and COVID-19 has reinforced many of these gaps. That was among the key messages to emerge from the United Nations as the world marked the International Day of the Girl Child, which was marked this past Sunday. UNWOMEN has called for the voices and rights of girls everywhere to be amplified under the theme, My Voice, Our Equal Future. For more on this, let's speak to UNWOMEN Director, Executive Director, that is, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, who joins us via Skype from the USA. I was about to say, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, I want to see the 15-year-old you. Good evening and welcome to African Perspective.
Good evening, good evening. It's wonderful to see you, and good evening to the viewers.
Thank you so much for making time for us. When you wrote this letter, just before you're going to read it for us, what was going through your mind? What is it that you wanted to send?
Well, I was thinking of myself as a 15-year-old girl and considering where I was then and what I know now, and looking at what I would have wanted someone to tell me at that time.
Yeah. And let's read that letter.
Okay, well, I didn't know you were going to make me really read it.
I'm sure there are 15-year-olds out there listening to this right now.
Well, it says, I know you don't really want any advice, but I've got a few thoughts for you. For where I stand today in 2020, you are on the right track already. Have faith in your sense of what's right, what's important, and your power to speak out about it. Finishing high school is going to be vital for you and vital for all the other girls. In fact, it is going to be a key to many of the things that are going to fall in your life, including becoming a teacher, a politician, a leader, and a global advocate for women and girls' rights. Those rights haven't been spelled out for you yet, but your instinct about them is correct. In the years ahead, you are going to be part of challenges to create equality in society where it doesn't exist. Your impatience with household chores and making sure that they are equally shared out with boys, and then the boys are taking their fair share, is going to be a central issue throughout the coming years for girls and women to be able to step up to take the full place in society, in politics, and in the economy. What you see happening in South Africa's apartheid movement is going to be something that is going to take you forward. It is going to take your country forward, and you are going to be part of an international movement of freedom fighters of many kinds. You won't be alone. You are part of a huge movement for equality and solidarity that's going to grow until it finds a home also in girls' voices in every country in the world. So take your space, speak up and speak out, and support your sister. The best way to prepare you for your future in the world is showing up, fight for the right causes, and doing your best in that fight.
Do you think that she would have had shivers down her spine?
Yes, because obviously it wouldn't have been as clear as it is now. Yeah. But it's something I would have loved someone to tell me.
Yeah, I think it's quite important as well. And I just want to just quickly focus on the letter because of the couple of themes that come out of this letter. And the last part is speak out, speak up, support your sisters, and that sense of sisterhood and the importance of sisterhood.
Yes, no, exactly. Because, as a girl, trying to tackle issues that are much bigger than you, it's important to know that you are part of a collective. It's also important to know that as a young person who is a bystander and uninvolved, you stand to lose a lot. If dare step and take a chance and address the issues that you feel strong about, it's wonderful to know that you can do that together with your friends, with your sisters, teammates, your schoolmates, whether it's to fight for your space in a soccer team, the right to be allowed to participate in the debating part, the right to wear your hair the way you want to, if you are a black girl in a school that discriminates girls because of their hair. Whether you are in a home where you see abuse and you are frightened and you don't know who to talk about, you need to know that as sisters and adults can talk to.
And also, I guess that sense of community, that if you have that sense of community, when you are able to see other strong women who look like you being able to push back against a form of injustice. And I know what the example that you make here is around the home chores. And I remember as a kid, especially in grade 12, something that our class teacher would remind us of constantly is that unlike you, the boy child, who would be allowed to go and study throughout the night, if you have to study throughout the night, the girl child will have to study, she will have to cook, and she'll have to clean.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we are not asking for the girl children not to help in their home, but we also are saying that the parents must pay attention to the fact that girls must not be made to do most of the work and have no possibility to attend to the other needs they have. And when that happens, girls must be able to say, really, I need my space, I need my time to, can my brother do some work? Well, it's important for girls to find their voices and to be able to make to take up those issues.
Yeah, and just finally,
that trains them to speak up when they are in other forums.
Yes, and just finally, as also that the solidarity that is needed, that would also need to come from the boy child, that needs to come from the brother as well, because I also have a sense of picking up that this is a form of injustice, and I need to empower my sister, but I also need to highlight and have a chat with my mom and say, but this is wrong, because at a later stage, when we start building these communities, and even in the workspace, we would have had the tools to say that, but it stops here, no further.
Actually, the letter is also to the parents, to the brothers, to the family, who must also speak up for the girl. Because a brother who speaks up for her girl when it comes to washing dishes is not likely to be the guy who will find it easy to go up and beat up women, because he actually heard at home about how his little sister felt. It's important for girls not to accept the status quo. They do not have a vested interest in what we have in society now. If they see that it doesn't work out for them, it's important for them to speak out. These girls that you see in Kenya who are standing up against child marriage, they're changing their future in a way that their parents are not willing to. It is taking them to step up for change to happen.
Well, certainly. And let's look at, number one, some of the strides that have been made. Because sometimes what I find quite strange in how we tell the story of the girl child is that we tend to focus more on the negative. But there is the positive story as well. There are women that have made strides. And I think that should form part of the girl child story, that here are women who are visible, and surely we can, as the media especially, make sure that those voices are amplified even more to show that these are the women that have done it. The girl child story is not only rooted in poverty and oppression.
Absolutely, because if we only tell them the bad news, we are actually giving them a sense of being defeated even before they start. It's important for them to know that some of the women they see now started from somewhere and they were able to overcome obstacles, and that can happen to them too. It's also important that they see women who look like them, because that assures them that if it would happen to someone who walked in my shoes, I could also walk on the path and get somewhere. Role models, stories of success and encouragement are absolutely important.
Yeah, and I remember the last time we had a radio conversation, and one of the questions that I asked you was about the pressures that would come on women who have succeeded, who have made it. And I thought that it is unfair to expect of those women to also pull up other women, but you say that that is not the case. It is important for them to do that.
It is an obligation to lift as you climb. I don't think as a society we've reached a point where any of us can relax and say, I have arrived, just dwell a valunya. We actually have to work to pull others who are having difficulties taking their next step. That luxury we just cannot afford. And today I also want to pay tribute to Dr. Vuyo Mahlaki,
yes,
who just passed away, because that's who she was. Yeah. She was in the business of pulling others away, of making sure that those who needed a push and a lift, she was there to do that. If we don't have women who do that, we're going to leave a lot of girls and women behind and out.
The business, they actually had a beautiful tribute to her today. So let's then focus on, we marked the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform of Action and some of the gains that have been made over the past 25 years. And then COVID-19 happens, and now we read reports that are saying that some of those gains that have been made, unfortunately, would have been lost along the way.
Yes, it's actually quite frightening to see how much the gains of 25 years are now under threat because of COVID-19. Many women made economic strides, but who still needed to move forward now are facing economic hardships that they might not recover from. Because even though women have pulled themselves up, it's still much harder for women to attract capital on their side. So if we have fiscal stimulus in many parts of the world, they are not directed to women who do not have insurance, who do not have the savings that are meant to see them through hard days. They were just making a start. And we are urging governments to pay attention to those gaps that might leave women behind. But also, you think in 1945, when the UN was formed, it was after the Second World War, the UN was a big idea to pull nations out of the ashes. 2020 with COVID is a big moment. In 1945, there was not even a single woman head of state who was there when the women was adopted. In 2020, there are 22 women head of state and head of government who are there. It's not enough, but it's a move forward. I want to see this as a moment to call for more countries to make possible for more women step forward and to become national leaders. So we see the moment of Beijing 2020 at the back of the pandemic that could erode again. It's a moment of push for changes. We want to see a silver line in the cloud and make sure that we take advantage of this crisis, the moment to look back and to say we cannot go on like this.
What about the economy itself? And I know that various women-led organizations and organizations that focus on the empowerment of women, and including the ANC Women's League, for instance, had this debate around starting up a bank that solely focuses on the empowering of women and giving them access to finance. Because if we have a debate, for instance, about racial inequality in South Africa specifically, and we look at some of the strict conditions that are attached to qualifying for finance. Some say on the basis of where we come from and colonialism, it then means that a lot of people won't be able to qualify. And that story then means it's worse off for women, especially black women.
Well, I would support any effort to make it easy for women to access capital for their enterprises and for their other needs as well. But I don't want us to concentrate on that. Women are entitled to have access to finance everything in all the banks. We do not want a situation where women walks into the one bank as the only means and place for them to get a finance. Yes, that would augment, but this does not happen at the expense of all the other banks, making it possible for women to access in their bank. So women must be everywhere.
Yeah, and speaking about that, when we talk about building back better, what does that mean for the specific demographic that is the girl child? And of course, now that we've used that context of South Africa, please feel free to do that.
You know, building back better means that we are urging the girls to disrupt the status quo that doesn't work for them. It means that girls not accept future where their aspirations in terms of girls at school are not appreciated. Girls must be able to lead in their schools. They must not be second class. At home, girls must be able to demand to be treated equally and given attention by their parents. It's also important that building back better, as far as girls is concerned, we fight against ending child marriage. We cannot say building back better and moving forward when we still allow loopholes that allow girls to be married into poverty, essentially, when they're being married off early. So for this demographic, building back better is about removing all these obstacles that only happen to you because you are a girl. Child marriage happens to girls because they are girls. Ukutwala only happens to girls because they are girls. Girls are trafficked because they are girls. So building back better is making sure that those who are supposed to protect girls from all of these harmful practices do their job.
What does it mean also in terms of what we've seen around the world and here in South Africa as well, where the argument is that there should be quotas that are set? That when we speak about parliament, for instance, that we must speak about the zebra approach, the 50-50 approach?
Well, evidence has shown that the countries that have had a sustained increase of participation in women have had one or other special measure. They have had quotas, they have had targets, they have had legislation. So yes, to the extent that these measures work and make it possible for us to progress, I definitely support such measures.
Okay, and let's then touch on this year's theme, My Voice, Our Equal Future.
That theme, I hope the girls will embrace and make sure that they feel empowered to speak up about the things that they want us as society to know about, because girls are not homogeneous. We need to be able to hear from the girls directly and not to second guess their needs. We also need to create the platforms where girls are able to be given an opportunity to showcase their talents. We have seen that girls are leading in climate change in South Africa. We've seen the young girls, the girls who spoke at the birthday of Archbishop Tutu. We have seen girls in other countries also leading on addressing the issues of access to education. So yes, girls' voices matter. They really matter. And these days they start really early. I was in a meeting earlier on and the youngest was 7 years old and she knew her story. So if she doesn't get that platform, we'll just never know the wisdom that can come out of a 7-year-old.
And why is that so important? That when you hear even from a child as young as 7 being able to articulate whatever room they find themselves in?
Well, they are inspiring to their peers. They are inspiring also to us as adults. I think they are also humbling us and showing us that we don't have all the answers. The biggest respect that we can show them is to take some of their views seriously and make an effort to implement them and to support them by encouraging the offering of platforms where they are able to speak. It's also important to guide them because obviously there is no substitute for time and lived experience. If you're older, you certainly come with that lived experience, but also it's important that as adults we don't come with the arrogance and think that we know it all, because they also have a different reality which we have not seen. Just because of our age, it excludes us from having the ability to see what the younger people are seeing.
That's very important. And with that said, because when we speak about the media space, it is adults. We are all adults here, and we have a certain worldview. When we speak about the justice system, which is obviously occupied by adults, and they have a certain worldview. I'd like you to send a message to adults who find themselves in these spaces, and for me, especially as somebody in the media, what is it that I can do differently with the power that I have?
Thank you so much for that opportunity. I really would like for you to see yourselves as people who have young people and these young girls in your care, who can champion and create the world we want them to grow into, and not to recycle the world that they don't want. Don't reinforce the stereotypes that we're trying to fight against. Strive to showcase excellence and the worldview that we want for the girls, so that we give them something to aspire to, and rather than reinforcing that which we're trying to help them overcome. You have a responsibility to be focused on giving them and showing them the best they could be.
Thank you so much for that, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. And we're loving your work. We miss you, though.
I miss home, too, but I've just come back.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay,
that is Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. That is the UNWOMEN's Executive Director. Quite an important conversation that we had around the girl child, and how do we make sure that these environments and these spaces that we have are spaces that are conducive and have the fertile soil for the girl child to also realize her power and change these spaces and make them more conducive for other girl children.